Conference championships are set. The Suns pick up a nice win on Saturday. They start in about 2 hours from now as they continue this road trip. Welcome in to today's edition of The Lunch Break, January 20th, 2025. Happy Monday to you. Maybe some of you are out and about. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, you have off. You're getting some errands done. You're in the car. We welcome you into the lunch break here today on KDUS AM 1060. We've got you here for the next 2 hours. Like I said, conference championships are all set, ready to go for this weekend, but we start with the basketball.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
How about this? How about Devin Booker and Kevin Durant combining for 71 points? The Suns move to 2-1 on this road trip. And now they take on the Cavs later on this afternoon. We will preview that in hour number 2 of the program. We appreciate you being here. 125-121, the Suns defeat the Detroit Pistons. They move to 21-20 on the season. Like I said, 2-1 on this road trip, and the big takeaway here, a bunch of takeaways from this game, but takeaway number 1, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant go off, combined for 71 points, and it was a slow start for Kevin Durant, who then took the game over late, and this team was able to get a 4-point victory on the road. It was the debut of Nick Richards. The team did not have Bradley Beal, so it was just Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, members of the Big Three, out there for the Phoenix Suns, and they got a nice 4-point victory. And we're going to start with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and how important they were in that game last night, or on Saturday, 71 points. We said that when the Big Three are on the floor, you're looking for those guys to combine for 80, 90 points if you want to feel like you have a good chance to win. That's where a lot of the scoring comes from. And you saw in this game on Saturday just how different this team operates if they don't have that scoring, right? If Durant goes through stretches where he's struggling a little bit, or Booker goes through stretches where he's struggling a little bit, the scoring, you kind of look around and you go, where else is this coming from? Is it coming from you, Ryan Dunn? Is it coming from you, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen? Where's it coming from? And with the bench being what it is, it's very spotty, right? We talked about on Friday, Grayson Allen, the 21 points that he dropped in that game last week. 7 points on Saturday. Spotty. You just don't know what you're going to get from these guys. They're bench players. They're coming in. They don't have rhythm. You don't know what you're going to get from these guys on a regular basis. Ryan Dunn, a nice, solid 12-point performance following up his first double-double of his career. Remember, 18 and 11. On Saturday, 12 and 8. You just don't have the consistency there from this group. You just don't have it. And so it relies very heavily on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and then somebody else has to step up. Well, that somebody was Nick Richards. Off the bench, did not start this game, 29 minutes. How about 21 points and 11 rebounds? How about a plus 22? How about a team overall? I want to make sure I get the stats correctly. Winning the rebounding battle 50-43. How about a team that only got out-rebounded 15-13 on the offensive side? So only out-rebounded by 2. That's a lot better than being out-rebounded 20-6 on the offensive glass. We talk about the extra possessions that you give these teams by getting out-rebounded 20-6. That's 14 extra chances. That's 14 second or third chances that team's going to get to score points on you. You have to limit those opportunities. The Suns did that, only a net -2 in that regard, and they were able to win the basketball game. It just felt different, right? The rebounding, it felt like there was a higher intensity, a higher effort, especially when Nick Richards was on the floor. You could see it from the word go, and we'll dive into this probably at the end of the hour. We'll talk more about Nick Richards, but you could tell right away. It was almost instantaneous what Nick Richards provides to this team. Is he the be-all, end-all? Does he solve all their problems? No, but in this game on Saturday, he solved 2 big ones. The rebounding, 50-43, the Suns out-rebounded the Detroit Pistons, but he was also that third scoring option. He was the person. He was the guy that provided that third scoring outlet. And you don't really need him to be that. He's brought in here to be the center, to be the rebounder, to be the rim protector, to bring the athleticism there. But he also provided the scoring, that third piece. And you saw that without Bradley Beal, without that additional scoring coming from the bench, They could never really run away with this game. Multiple times I was sitting there, and I'll be the first person to raise my hand. I had this game on the big TV, and I had the Chiefs-Texans playoff game on the tablet. So the eyes were diverted depending on what was happening. But it just felt like over and over and over again in the game on Saturday, the Suns had a chance. The game was kind of starting to break open, and you could see the train leaving the station of, oh, they're going to go on a run here. This is going to be a double-digit lead, and they're going to have this, I don't want to say cruise control, but you're going to feel really good about it. You're going to feel like this one's in hand. This is comfortable. They got into Detroit. They took care of business. Nice victory, 2-1 on the road trip. And it just felt like every time you started to feel like that could be the case, every time you started to feel like that was right around the corner, here comes Detroit. They close it to 3 points. They close it to 2 points. Or the game is tied. It just never felt like the Suns could take control of this game. Why? They just didn't have that other consistent third scoring option. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, they did their part. Durant with the 36, Booker with 35, combining for 71. Without Bradley Beal, I don't know if you can ask much more from those two guys, but you saw it. Somebody else has to step up. Somebody else has to provide that scoring. On Saturday, it was Nick Richards. Who will it be today? Bradley Beal questionable for the game today against the Cavs. Tips off about a half an hour after we are off the air, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll obviously talk about that on tomorrow's show. But Bradley Beal questionable, no use of Nurkic. He is ruled out. No surprise. They're just going to keep him as far away from this team as possible until they can find a resolution to that situation. So they could be getting Bradley Beal back. That would certainly be nice. And we're going to talk a little bit later on in the program of what we need to see today from the Suns against the Cavs. What are realistic expectations? What can today show us or prove to us? What questions can potentially get answered? But for the first game in the Nick Richards era, his first game since getting traded here, came off the bench and was awesome for this team. A plus 22, 21 and 11, just was everything that this team needed to be. Brought the energy. You could see that he was playing, I think, with a little bit more energy, even more so than what he was traded for. Right? He was traded to be athletic, to provide energy, to be a rim protector. And he brought, I think, even more than that. And you saw the chemistry right away with Durant, right away with Booker. They were feeding off of each other, and in nice, solid victory. You're not going to give it back. Like the Washington game the other day, right? We said, hey, you take any victory you can get. You look at any of these contests on the road with where this team is at, and you do not overanalyze a game like Saturday. 4-point win on the road against Detroit, a nice, solid Detroit team, and you were able to take care of business. Check. 2-1 on this road trip. You got to get one of the next two. Cleveland today, Brooklyn to close out this road trip. And we said if you came back from this road trip 3-2, we'd feel really good about it. We would say mission accomplished. Now you're going to come back home for a little bit, and you're going to have a chance to maybe start to make some ground in the standings. That is what we looked at this road trip as being. Steady the waters, get yourself back above 500, take care of business, and then come home and reset. And in the middle of this road trip, they make a trade. And so far, 2-1 on this road trip. Can't complain too much. Again, we got on them for blowing the Washington game. We got on them for starting this road trip with a loss. I get all that. But if they come back from this road trip 3-2, if they come back from this road trip exactly where we wanted them to be, then what the day-to-day, night-to-night, game-to-game overreactions can kind of get pushed to the wayside because we set out what the message was. We said, hey, 3-2 on this road trip. Get back above 500, come back at least 22 and 21, and you'll feel good. They left themselves little margin for error. They have a tough test today against the best team in the East in the Cleveland Cavaliers, but then it is a good matchup for them against a Brooklyn team that isn't really going anywhere. So everything is still in front of them to come back from this road trip 3-2. Where they go from there, where they go long term, I think those are balls that are still in the air. I don't think we feel any differently just from one good Nick Richards performance. We don't feel any differently that Bradley Beal is questionable. Or it looks like he's on pace for a return. I don't think we feel any differently about where this team is at. But it would be nice to get through a stretch like this, them achieving what, at least on this show, we set out for them to achieve. If they can achieve that goal, you can start to turn the corner a little bit in terms of expectations. You can maybe start to see that the small tweak was the right move. Seeing this through with this group for at least the remainder of this year might pan out. But a nice solid win for them. Booker and Durant combining for 71 points in the contest. Couldn't really pull away. Had an opportunity to. I had multiple opportunities to, truthfully, to run away from this Pistons team, run away and hide with it. Just felt like every chance, a missed shot at the one end, Detroit comes down and score, and now all of a sudden what could have been a nice little run, Here comes Detroit, leads close. Just was a back-and-forth contest that the Suns could never really take full control of and run away from, but you don't give these ones back. 21-20, 2-1 on this road trip, a 125-121 victory against the Detroit Pistons, and now the fourth of 5 games on this road trip today as they take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Super excited to see what this matchup looks like. A real true litmus test, I think, in a lot of different ways for the Phoenix Suns when they take on Cleveland later on today, in about 2 hours from now. Now, I don't know what your expectations are. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to hop in and get involved with any of the stuff that we talk about here on the show today. We appreciate you being here. Like I said, a huge weekend in sports. You had the conference championships, the divisional round setting up the conference championships in the NFL. A nice Suns win. Tonight we have the college football national championship. We'll get to that in the leftovers. So a huge buffet, a huge menu of sports topics for you to join in the conversation on today. 480-864-1060. Would love a vibe check on where you're at with the Phoenix Suns after their win over the weekend to get to 2-1 on this road trip. Coming up on the other side of the break. It was a nice victory. They won the basketball game. They're 2-1 on the road trip. But I would make the case to you all that what you saw on Saturday and what you saw specifically from 2 players on this team is proof that the Suns are built the wrong way. Now, you may be thinking, Chris, what are you talking about? The Suns picked up a victory. The Suns won a basketball game, and you're going to tell me why there's a negative to take away from that game? I'll explain what I mean on the other side. One reason from this game this past weekend that is proof that the Suns are built the wrong way. I'll explain on the other side. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You can take this show or any of the shows here on the station with you on the go. Opportunity to win prizes over there as well. Your one-stop shop for everything KDUS AM 1060. And also, your one-stop shop for everything the lunch break. So not only can you listen to the show live, you can see the video version over there, but all of these smaller video segments that we cut out and put out on our KDUS AM 1060 YouTube page, you can see right there in the app as well. So your one-stop shop for everything lunch break and everything KDUS AM 1060, the KDUS AM 1060 app. So I'd appreciate if you downloaded that today. Back into the Suns real quick, and we've got the NFL Rewind in about 15 minutes from now. My big picture takeaways, my thoughts in rapid-fire fashion on the 4 Divisional Round contest, and boy, do we have a lot of them. And in hour number 2 of the program, I will tell you why there is one thing that the Cardinals can learn from everything we saw in the Divisional Round of the playoffs. If you were a Cardinals fan watching the Divisional Round this weekend, there should have been a common theme that you saw over and over and over again. I'll tell you what that is and why it is important for this offseason for the Arizona Cardinals in hour number 2. But I told you that there was a takeaway from the Suns game that is proof that the Suns are built the wrong way. Well, there was no Bradley Beal on Saturday, and it was Kevin Durant and it was Devin Booker. And those two guys combined to score 71 of the team's 125 points. That's pretty good. Those two guys, superstars, they showed up like superstars would, right? What have I been telling you over and over and over again when it comes to the Phoenix Suns? I have told you that this team is not built the proper way. It is not built the way modern, and what I mean by modern is 2024, 2025 NBA teams are built. They are built like the Miami Heat Big Three or the Golden State Warriors Big Three. They are built in the way of an older era of the NBA. Saturday was proof of that. Because you know what I felt watching that game on Saturday? I didn't watch that game and felt, you know what this team is missing right now? They're missing Bradley Beal. You know what I felt watching that game on Saturday? You know what this team is missing? A couple bench pieces, some nice role players to come off the bench. Did you watch that game and think that the Suns are better suited to spend $50 million on Bradley Beal than they would be to take that $50 million and spread it around to multiple different players that could help their team? Did you watch that game on Saturday? Now, they missed the scoring from Bradley Beal. I just said that in the last segment. They needed somebody else to step up. But how much nicer would it be if you had 2 or 3 guys that you could look to add that scoring? So you're not looking around to where it's got to be Bradley Beal every night. Or if Bradley Beal's not around, you're always looking at Grayson Allen. Or you're always looking at Royce O'Neal. Wouldn't it be nice to have a deeper bench? Wouldn't it be nice to build the way other teams are built? The dynamic duo, 2 really good superstar players that are surrounded with good quality depth role players? Wouldn't that be a nice way to build your basketball team? And I'm watching this game on Saturday, and I'm watching Kevin Durant and Devin Booker do what they do, combined for 71 points. And I'm sitting there going, I don't miss Bradley Beal. I just miss additional scoring. I miss other options for this team. And I just sat there and I thought to myself that $50 million that they're spending on Bradley Beal, that they chose to take on when they traded for Bradley Beal, how much better would we feel about this Suns team if that $50 million was spent on 2 or 3 role players that made their bench stronger, that made their bench deeper? Because guess what? If you bring Bradley Beal back, or when Bradley Beal comes back from this injury, and again, he's questionable for today's game against the Cavs. I have not seen if he's in the lineup or not. I just know questionable is what has been thrown around for Bradley Beal's availability today. But when Bradley Beal comes back and you infuse his $50 million salary and you infuse him off the bench, guess what? You're still missing additional scoring. We've told you, Bradley Beal, it's a roller coaster ride of what you're going to get from him off the bench. Some days it's awesome. Some days it's 25. Some days it's 23. And then other games it's 10. Other games, it's 12. Wouldn't it be better, and wouldn't the money be better allocated if you had 2 or 3 guys who were really awesome off the bench, were 6th man of the year candidates, that knew their role, were good in that role, thrived in that role, and you gave Coach Budenholzer additional options off the bench? Wouldn't that be nice? That's what I felt watching that game. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, talented enough to lead a team on their own. They don't need a third head to the 3-headed monster. They're good. Dynamic duo. They're fine. What they need is bench pieces. And with Bradley Beal's injury history, with Bradley Beal now coming off the bench and him being inconsistent in what he gives you, that's not his fault. You're putting a player in a role that he hasn't played in, 8 or 9 seasons? It just feels like the Suns are trying to make Bradley Beal the auxiliary piece to a dynamic duo, but you're paying him like a member of the Big Three, so it impacts the rest of your roster. It impacts players 4 through 10 or 11 in your rotation. That was my big takeaway from watching this game on Saturday. I'm watching Kevin Durant and Devin Booker do everything, and I'm sitting there going, man, wouldn't it be nice if just right now you just had somebody that you knew every night could come off the bench and give you 15 to 20? And you weren't paying him $50 million a year, so the expectations weren't higher? Because if you had that $50 million, not only could you have one guy who could do that, but you could have 2 guys that could do that. To go along with Grayson Allen and his three-point shooting. To go along with Royce O'Neal and the 3-and-D that he provides. Wouldn't it be nice to have a more well-rounded bench? Wouldn't it be nice to be deeper? That was the option that was in front of you. You didn't have to trade for Bradley Beal. But the moment you did, you locked yourself in. So I watched that game on Saturday, and I watched a team that proved to me they're built wrong. They are trying to square peg round hole this. They are trying to, on the fly, turn their Big Three into a dynamic duo. They're trying to do it. The problem is the cost associated with it. You have committed the dollars. So you're a flawed team with a Big Three. They're now furthering your flaws by moving a member of that Big Three to the bench. It's why it's hard to get on board with this team going anywhere. They are a flawed team. They are not built the way that you are supposed to be built. And now they're trying to kind of fake it till you make it with being this other version of themselves. Hey, we're just going to move Bradley Beal to the bench. That's what everybody wants, right? Got to have more bench scoring, right? Got to give these guys space, dynamic duo, have a well-rounded bench. So you're kind of doing that, but you're not reaping the rewards of it because you have $50 million allocated to one player coming off your bench. That's no way to build a basketball team. That's no way to build a well-rounded roster. That's what I saw on Saturday. I saw a team that with Bradley Beal sidelined could be something awesome if they had that $50 million to spend on a bench. It's not the fact that the Suns are a second apron team and there are all of those limitations that come with it. It's where they've spent that money. The New York Knicks right now are right up against being a second apron team. Right up against it. Traded for Cat. Traded for Mikal Bridges, have Jalen Brunson, have Josh Hart. It's not a great bench. They have a deeper bench, though. They have guys that they know can come off the bench and provide them scoring. Look around the league. Look at how all of these teams are built. You got to have a good bench. And so the Suns are trying to artificially create that good bench. And credit to them, their record since making this change is good. They have reaped the rewards. We've pointed out to you, be careful. Look at who they've played. Let's see what happens when they come home and the schedule gets a little tougher and you start playing more of those Western Conference teams that you're directly competing with to move up the standings. But credit where credit is due. The move has worked, but it is an artificial change. It's not really what the designed intent would be if you were building a dynamic duo. That's not how it's supposed to play out. And so whether Bradley Beal comes back today against Cleveland, whether it's against Brooklyn, they're going to continue to try to do this. And I give them credit for trying, and I give Bradley Beal credit for giving it the good old college try. He is not causing any problems, and he is trying to make the most of this role. But that's not Bradley Beal's best spot. Bradley Beal is not a role player. You're not paying him to be a role player. So you're trying to make a role player. You're trying to create a deeper bench by artificially moving your player that was in the starting lineup to the bench. It might work for a little bit. I don't think it has long-term stability. But I'm sitting back watching that game, and I'm watching Patrick Mahomes run around on the one screen, and then I got the big TV in front of me, and I'm watching Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in the second half, and watching Book in the first half, and watching Durant just make tough shot after tough shot in the second half, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't miss Bradley Beal at all. I miss the idea of a good bench. I miss the idea of players coming off the bench and being able to provide some additional scoring. I miss that, and whether it's Bradley Beal or somebody else, that I miss. But I don't think I specifically missed Bradley Beal on Saturday. I watched Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and I thought to myself, man, you support those guys with the right pieces? Those two are good enough to win a championship. And the point I'm making to you all is they made the wrong decision. They picked the wrong piece. Because you had 2 paths. After you traded for Kevin Durant, you had 2 paths to take. Build an awesome bench and build depth, or get a third superstar. Everybody else nowadays is going down the path of building a well-rounded bench, or at least having more options. The Suns chose the path from the past. They chose to be like the Miami Heat. They chose to be like the Golden State Warriors. And with the new restraints on these teams from a financial perspective, if you make that decision and you get it wrong, meaning you pick the wrong player, it doesn't work, it doesn't gel, you're stuck. You've got nowhere else to go. There isn't any wiggle room. It's why, and no offense to him, he's awesome, and we're going to talk about it here, how awesome he was, but that's why Nick Richards is the best you can do in the trade market. Because you got Yusuf Nurkic's bad contract. Again, you traded for that because you needed to get out of the DeAndre Ayton business. That money stopping you from building out a better bench. Bradley Beal's money stopping you from building out a better bench. Combine those two player salaries and think about how much better the Suns could be if that money was spread around over 2 or 3 players that could give this team more value. Think about how differently we would feel. Look at Oklahoma City. Look at Cleveland. They're not built with 3 superstars. They are well-rounded, deep teams. Now, one could make the argument both of those teams are missing that second superstar. But Cleveland, Donovan Mitchell, they feel really good about the way that they're built. They feel ecstatic about the way that they're built, and you'll see it today when the Suns take on the Cavs. And so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody will tell me 480-864-1060 why I'm foolish, why I'm stupid, why it's a moronic take. I'm sure somebody disagrees with me out there. But I think there's more of you out there that agree with what I'm saying. That you watched that game, and maybe you didn't notice it, but now that I'm telling it to you, you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't miss Bradley Beal on Saturday. I missed the idea of somebody being able to provide that extra scoring. And how much better off would the Suns be if they were able to take that money and get 2 or 3 players? So when Grayson Allen has a bad night and he scores 7 after scoring 21 in his previous contest, it's okay because you have a well-rounded bench where you've got 4 or 5 guys on any given night that could step up. Where right now, you're dealing from, it's like 2 or 3 guys. Imagine increasing your odds that somebody goes off. Imagine having 4 or 5 guys that you can look at and go, well, that guy could go for 20 tonight, or that guy could go for 20 tonight. The Suns don't have that. Budenholzer looks at his bench, and it's like 2 or 3 guys, and it's like, it's got to be one of you tonight. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. That's where the Suns are at right now. NFL Rewind. My takeaways, rapid fire fashion on all 4 divisional round playoff games. The NFL Rewind. It's next. The lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. The conference championships are set. We are down to the final four in the NFL playoffs. So what are we going to do here on this Monday? You know what we're going to do. Come on. That's what we do every single Monday after the NFL week. It's the NFL Rewind. 4 games for us. A lot of time to devote to these games. And we'll do it in chronological order. By the way, just before we get off to the jump here, tough week for the Schubert Six. Tough week. I believe our final tally was 1-2-1. We had a push. We had a push in a game, and I'll get to it when we get there. We had it. Everything we said about that game, we were 100% correct on. We'll talk about that when we get there. That was our push this weekend. The Chiefs beat the Texans 23-14. They're just inevitable, man. They're just going to get there every year. If you're going to have to go to Arrowhead and play, it's just not happening. It was there for the Texans, right? They score a touchdown to open up the third quarter. Miss the extra point. It's over. Hey, you're done. You do that. You miss the extra point. You miss your chance to tie the game. It's over. You have missed your chance to take down the champs. You've missed your chance to dethrone the king. The moment they missed that extra point, everybody knew. You all knew what was going to happen. You knew how this was going to play out. Now, looking at the stats from this game, you look at Patrick Mahomes' stat line, and you would be shocked. 16 of 25, 177 yards, 1 touchdown. If I just read the stat line to you, you'd be like, oh, that's a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. Just game manage, man. Just don't turn the ball over. Keep it simple. Look to your check down. Use your tight end. Oh, by the way, the tight end in this game, 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Shout out Travis Kelce for the performance that he put together. They just flipped the switch, man. This is what you're scared of if you're anybody in the AFC. This is what you're scared of if you are the Buffalo Bills. We'll get to them in a little bit. But the Chiefs, 8-0 at home this season. They just don't lose at home. They covered, by the way. This was the one we got. Told you. It was only our 3-point play because we were scared. But if there was ever a time for them to do it, it was against this opponent in this spot. And we got to make picks later on in the week. I'm already dreading it. I'm already dreading what the numbers are for these games. I believe Bills-Chiefs opened up as a pick'em. So that's just who do you think is going to win the football game. So we'll see what happens here over the course of the week to see where that number moves to. But the Chiefs beat the Texans 23-14. And if you're the Texans, man, I get it. You're frustrated. You're frustrated at the roughing the passer call that Mahomes got when it looked like 2 Houston Texans players or when Will Anderson went up top but didn't really go all the way up top. And then the Patrick Mahomes sliding and 2 Houston Texans players collide. I get it. You're calling Houston radio stations today and you are fired up. I understand. You're thinking the Chiefs get all the calls. You're telling me that Patrick Mahomes gets all the calls. I get it. Did you watch the officiating this weekend? Did you watch it across the board? It was terrible. Every single game, there's a handful of calls that were downright egregious from the officiating. So I get how you feel. I get that you're frustrated. You got to make the extra point, man. You just got to. You got to make that extra point. Your defense played well enough for you to win. You had to execute on more drives, and you just couldn't get it done. So the Chiefs going back to the AFC Championship game as they look to three-peat, still on the table. And then we move to Saturday night. And the Commanders pulled off the upset of all upsets. 45-31. They go into Detroit, and this is what you were afraid of, right? You were afraid of a defense, and we told you what this could be. We told you that this game could get out of hand, and it could be a track meet. We told you that the Lions' defense is just gashed with injuries. And if Washington could score points, it was going to be a back-and-forth affair, but we just liked the talent more on the Detroit side of things. Well, Jared Goff turning the ball over 3 times. The play calling in the second half was questionable. And let's face it, man, Jaden Daniels is a dude. 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, didn't take a single sack, didn't have an interception, didn't turn the ball over. He just went in there and played like a veteran. Jaden Daniels led the Washington Commanders on the road in a hostile environment in Detroit, the 1 seed in the NFC, and he acted like it was his 4th straight playoff game. It didn't faze him, man. It didn't. No situation bothered him. You saw it against the Buccaneers when he took the team on the drive to kick the field goal, and you saw it in the game on Saturday. He's unfazed. Unfazed. 16 carries for 51 yards on the ground. Just handled every single thing the Lions could throw at him, and I love it. I love the narratives. Oh, who's going to hire Aaron Glenn now? Really? Do yourself a favor. Look at the injured reserve list for the Detroit Lions and tell me that that's going to be a fair justification for why Aaron Glenn shouldn't get hired, the performance that they had on Saturday. Come on now. One game does not change a coach's fortunes. Aaron Glenn has gotten the most out of a group that has been shorthanded all year long. Remember, it was just a couple of weeks ago that they held the Vikings to 9 points on Sunday Night Football and everybody was singing his praises. That was 2 weeks ago. I guess everyone's got a short-term memory. He's going to interview with the Jets for the second time today. This one's in person. He's also meeting with the Saints. That feels like he is going to pick a team by probably Friday. Aaron Glenn's going to be hired somewhere. And for the Detroit Lions, let's face it, there is nothing about your future that is guaranteed, and so Dan Campbell can talk about how the window is open, and you can point to Jared Goff, and you can point to Jahmyr Gibbs, who, by the way, 14 carries, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He brought it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, you can talk about it all. Aiden Hutchinson, you can talk about the young core that this team has. You were the number 1 seed in the NFC. You won your division. You won 15 games. Home field advantage the whole way throughout. You're about to lose your OC and DC to head coaching jobs. This might be the best it's going to get. And you missed. You missed your opportunity. It's what we said to you all a couple of weeks ago. We said, listen, progression doesn't happen linearly. It's all over the place. This might have been the Lions' best shot, even with all the injuries. They still won 15 games. They still were the 1 seed. Next year, they might be healthy all year, but might only win 12 games and might be the 3 seed instead of the 1 seed, or might be a wild card team, and now they have to go on the road, and they don't handle it well. This might have been their best chance. This might be a complete waste of a season. It is a waste of a season. They wasted this. They didn't even win a playoff game. And so I get it, Detroit fans, if you're upset today because missed opportunity. And you don't know if you're ever going to be able to get back to this point. You just don't know what the future might hold. We get to Sunday. The Rams and the Eagles. The snow fell, and it made this game just Chaosville. Population, Rams and Eagles. Couldn't hold on to the football. We're turning it over all over the place. The Eagles beat the Rams 28-22. Let's face it, folks. Saquon Barkley, man, he's special. If there's ever a year for somebody to dethrone a quarterback as an MVP, it's probably Saquon. 205 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Just big play after big play. He just broke it over and over and over again. And on the other side, it just pains me. I told you on Friday, I looked into this camera to you listening on the app or on the radio or via the web player online, however you're listening. I told you the Rams had the recipe. And if you want to go on the road and pull off an upset, the recipe is simple. You got to have a coach. Check. Sean McVay just calling plays at the right time all throughout the first 3 quarters of this game. You have to have the quarterback who can make the 5 to 7 big throws. Did you see the ball to Puka Nacua on the drive that almost won the football game? Are you kidding me? In that spot, to make that throw and to make that catch, they had the quarterback check. The running game, Kyron Williams was bringing it. The defense, they were, other than Saquon Barkley breaking a couple of plays, they were doing a solid job. You had it. You had the entire recipe. You had the ball with a chance to win. How bad it got in the second half, the turnovers, Kyron Williams fumbling the ball a couple of times. You still had the ball on the road with a chance to win and kick an extra point to put yourself in the NFC Championship game, and you just didn't get it done. So credit to the Eagles, but I'm telling you, man, the Commanders can beat the Eagles this week. They can do it. I am not impressed with this Eagles team. They've seen Saquon twice already this year. So they're going to be able to come up with probably the best game plan. And oh, by the way, kind of helps to have a defensive coordinator as your head coach who's seen Saquon because he was with the Cowboys. So he saw him with the Giants, and now he's seen him a couple times with the Eagles. So if you're going to come up with a pretty nice game plan, this is the coach that you would pick. This is the guy. And then the last game of the day, we told you, I said it on Friday. The winner of this game goes on to win the Super Bowl. The Bills beat the Ravens 27-25, and if you are the Ravens, holy smokes. I mean, come on, man. Turnovers, miscues. Mark Andrews, what are we doing? We catch a ball, and we have all this open space up the field, and we turn towards the sideline, and then we fumble the ball. on the two-point conversion, a play that we run all the time down there. We're wide open. There's not a defender. It's the red zone. There's not a defender within 3 yards of you. The ball hits you in the chest. You're falling down into the end zone. Just hold on to the ball. No, can't do that. Missed opportunities, mistakes. And I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear about Lamar Jackson throwing an interception early in this game and the turnovers. I don't want to hear it. We talk about legacy drives and legacy moments. The Bills kicked the field goal to take an 8-point lead with about 3 minutes to go in the football game. Lamar Jackson was handed the ball with a chance to lead his team all the way down the field for what is a legacy drive. On that drive, he could have erased everything. You take the team down the field, you score, you get the two-point conversion, and you force potentially overtime against the Buffalo Bills. After everybody is in that moment thinking you are going to mess this up, you're going to throw the back-breaking interception. You're going to take the bad sack. You're going to make the wrong decision in crunch time because this is what you do. What did Lamar Jackson do on that drive? He marched them right down the field. Big throw after big throw. The two-point conversion, he made the right throw, made a good throw, made the right decision. This game's not on Lamar. I will not have it. Both of those quarterbacks in that game played excellent, and Lamar Jackson, man, I get that the interception's going to haunt him that he had early in the game. He had the ball with a chance to force overtime, and he did everything that he needed to do there. And he's not going to throw his teammate under the bus. That's being a good quarterback, a good leader. We'll do that here on this show. Mark Andrews, you got to catch the ball, man. You just got to do it. So Buffalo moves on, a rematch, Kansas City, Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, and a little NFC East clash, Washington, Philadelphia, with a chance to win the Super Bowl. That's your Divisional Round NFL Rewind. Coming up on the other side of the break, your phone calls 480-864-1060 as always, but we wrap up hour number one. It's just one game, but it very much looks like the Suns have got themselves a brand new starting center. We'll break down Nick Richards' debut for the Phoenix Suns next. The lunch break, KDUS, AM 1060. Welcome back into the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060, wrapping up hour number one of the show here. Make sure you head on over to the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube page, please. hit that subscribe button. We've got a bunch of video content over there for you. So if you miss anything from the show, or maybe you're somebody who just wants to hear the Diamondbacks content, or you just want to hear the Cardinals content or the Suns content, guess what? We chop it all up. We put it over there on YouTube. So all the Suns stuff that we do is over there under its own banner. So the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube page, your chance to catch up on the show. The video version is over there, but also your chance to maybe you just want to focus on the Phoenix Suns for a little bit. Guess what? We've got you covered over there. One game in, and it's pretty clear. The Suns got themselves a brand new starting center. And I know he didn't start on Saturday. I know they had him come off the bench. They started Mason Plumlee. I get that. Did you watch the game? And don't just look at the box score. Don't just look at the 21-11, although that's intoxicating to look at. You're like, oh, man, if that's what they're going to get from their center spot, good trade. Suns win the trade. Just watch the game. Watch the way Nick Richards conducted himself on both ends of the floor. There was a moment early in the game, and the TV broadcast talked about this, and it was a play that was a bust. It didn't lead to anything. But the Suns were coming out in transition, and Kevin Durant had the ball on the right side. And he attempted, I don't know, a cross-court 20-foot bounce pass to Nick Richards, who got into the paint. And he just missed him by maybe an inch or two, and it went out of bounds. It was a turnover. And yeah, it goes in the box score as a turnover, but guess what? With Nurkic or Plumlee, that pass isn't even available to Kevin Durant. That opportunity doesn't exist for Kevin Durant. Nick Richards' athleticism was on full display on both ends of the floor. You saw it rebounding. I can't tell you how many times it looked like he flew in from off the screen to tip the ball back or to grab a rebound or to finish the play at the rim. He was just all over the place. It is obvious to anybody that knows or doesn't know basketball that Nick Richards is going to be the starting center of this basketball team. And we talked about how great that would be for this team. To get this team back to Plumlee and Oso being in better roles for their specific skill sets and where they're at in their careers. Plumlee on the back nine, Oso on the front nine, just starting his career. And so you got to be careful with the minutes that you give these guys. You can't overload them. You can't overload Mason Plumlee because he's a veteran. He's 34 years old. How much is he going to be able to give you? And with Oso, you have to limit the mistakes. Nick Richards provided an energy on Saturday that this team wasn't getting from their center. He provides a physical, athletic presence on defense to grab rebounds that, let's face it, Plumlee and Oso don't bring right now. Oso might be able to bring it down the road. Plumlee, at 34 years old, you know what you got. He is what he is. And so watching that game, it's even the plays that they didn't make, even the plays that were unsuccessful, you could see the difference that Richards has on the game. You see how differently the team is able to play when you have a consistent rebounder, when you have somebody. I mean, it was almost instantaneous. Plumlee started the game, and it was back and forth, but the Suns, you could tell the rebounding, okay, get Nick Richards in there, please, please, please. And Nick Richards comes into the game, and just instantaneously you can see him all over the floor on both ends. Making good cuts to the basket, is able to finish, picking up offensive rebounds, on the defensive rebound, physical, making guys earn it when they go to the basket. I mean, you could just tell immediately in the first couple of minutes. And again, take the 21-11 and just put it to the side for a second. You could just tell from the physicality and the energy that he's an upgrade. You could tell from the physicality and the energy that he was a good move for the Phoenix Suns, that it was a good trade for the Phoenix Suns. Add in that he went for 21-11 in his first game for his new team. Now, he doesn't need to do that every night, nor is he going to do that every night. But on a night where the Suns needed, or an afternoon where the Suns needed somebody else to step up and provide the scoring, Nick Richards provided that scoring. Nick Richards was that guy. Was a plus 22, added 21-11, energy, athleticism, creates new creative outlets for the team, offensively, defensively, physicality. Just a home run. And you saw it. You could very clearly see why the Suns made this guy their target, why they thought this guy fit what they needed down low. We told you the statistics when they made the trade for Nick Richards, how good he has been when he has started. And again, I'm telling you all right now, 21-11 is not the expectation for Nick Richards moving forward. Awesome that he has that in his bag of tricks. Awesome that every once in a while he might be able to pull that out. But you just need his energy, his athleticism, and the rebounding. They out-rebounded the Pistons 50-43. On the offensive side, they got out-rebounded 15-13, so a net -2. But it was just a few games ago where they got out-rebounded on the offensive glass 20-6. So that is 12 possessions or extra possessions that you took off the table for the Pistons. In a game, by the way, that you won by only 4 points. So think about if you had given away a couple of those extra possessions. Maybe 4 extra possessions. And there's a bucket here or there. The Pistons could have won that basketball game. And so you see the impact that somebody like Nick Richards can have. And it's not going to take long. I think you wait maybe another game or two. We'll see. This will be fascinating because I would make the argument that now that Richards has joined the team, he's had a couple of days with the team, he's gotten up to speed, and that's what you saw. Think about this for a second. The dude got traded, hadn't played much recently, came in, and in his first game for the team, 21-11. If you're worried for a second that he isn't going to be able to get up to speed quick enough to be the starter, I think your concerns have been alleviated. I think you feel a little bit better about Nick Richards being inserted into the starting lineup. So I would not be shocked if today, when the Suns take the floor against the Cleveland Cavaliers, Nick Richards is being inserted into the lineup as the starting center. I mean, look at the minutes. He played 29 minutes in that game on Saturday. Mason Plumlee played 13. It's very clear who the Suns want to give the length to, who they want to give the run to. It's very clear who's going to play the crunch time minutes for this team, who's going to play the important minutes for this team. It's going to be Nick Richards. So would not be shocked in the slightest. You don't need any additional time. You saw it. 21-11, energy, athleticism, was there for his teammates, was open, being that creative outlet, bringing that physicality, being that rim protector. He didn't look lost. Did you watch that game on Saturday and feel like, man, Nick, not in the right spot here, Nick? No. You watched and you said, that guy gets it. That guy is up to speed. So get this to the place where you want it to be. Again, you're running out of time. Not a lot of wiggle room here left in the season. You don't need any additional time. So if it was me, I saw enough on Saturday to say Nick Richards starting lineup, good. Because that's where you want to be anyway. That's where this trade ends up. When you traded for Nick Richards, it wasn't to be a guy to give you 17 minutes off the bench as a backup center. You traded for him because you sent Jusuf Nurkic to Mars. Mason Plumlee's too old. Oso's too young in his career. You needed somebody that you knew could be your starting center night in and night out. So you identified Nick Richards as a target. You traded 3 second-round picks and Josh Okogie. The idea here is to get to a place where Nick Richards is the starting center. I saw enough on Saturday to say, why wait? You don't need another game. Boom, we're good. Ready to go. Let's hit the ground running. That's how impressive Nick Richards was on Saturday. I mean, third highest scorer on the team with his 21 points. You got the 71 from Book. You got another Book and Durant. You got another 21 from Nick Richards. And if Beal's back in the lineup, you don't need 21. Give me double-double. Give me 10 and 10. 10 and 10 is perfect. 10 and 10 with that energy, with that physicality, with that athleticism. We're good. You got what you want out of the center position. You've seen all you've needed to see in just the one game to get this center rotation back to where it was supposed to be with Jusuf Nurkic. For those of you maybe just hopping in the car or listening wherever you're listening, you don't know, Bradley Beal questionable for today's game against the Cavs. Jusuf Nurkic out as we continue to await a conclusion to that situation. Listen, Jusuf Nurkic is not going to return to this team. They've got 3 centers. They just made a trade for a center. He was very impressive. They like their rotation of Nick Richards, Mason Plumlee, and Oso Ighodaro. That's it. So they have to find a resolution to this Jusuf Nurkic situation, but he's been ruled out for today's contest against the Cavs, which tips off in about 90 minutes from now. And we will see if Nick Richards earns himself into the starting lineup. I would not wait. I think it is very simple for me. Put him in the starting lineup. That's where you want to be anyway. You saw enough on Saturday to be able to warrant him being the starting center for this team. You don't need to see anymore. 35-6 Cavs. We'll talk about this in hour number 2 of the program of what we can learn from this game today. But no Evan Mobley today for the Cavs. No Jusuf Nurkic for the Suns. Bradley Beal a game-time decision, and there's a chance he could return today. Listed as a game-time decision, listed as questionable. with that ankle injury. Would be nice to have him back in that lineup. So we'll break down in hour number 2 of the program what we can learn from today's game against the Cavs, which again tips off in 90 minutes. The one thing I'd like to learn, I'd like to see what Nick Richards looks like in the starting lineup. So if we could expedite that today, feel like there's no reason to not do that. So the Suns, yes, they've got themselves a brand new starting center, and it was clear from the get-go. There's no, nothing. He delivered everything that you needed to see from him on Saturday to know that that needs to be the starting center for this team moving forward. 480-864-1060 is the phone number. Hour number 2 of the program right around the corner. Would love for you to hop in. You can also hop in on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube live stream as well, the video version of the show over there. We've got some more football to get into in hour number 2, but we start with some baseball because first it was Roki Sasaki, then it was Tanner Scott. Are the Dodgers ruining baseball? That's how we'll start hour number 2 of the program. Appreciate you being here. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back in hour number 2 of the lunch break. We've got you one more hour till 1 o'clock. Jim Rome show at the top of the hour, 1 to 4. Right here on KDUS AM 1060. And it is the top trending story in baseball right now, and people are going back and forth. It has gotten us to a place where people are wondering if a salary cap is in the sport's future because the Dodgers are at it again. They landed Roki Sasaki, and then they followed that up by signing the top closer on the market, lefty Tanner Scott, to a 4-year, $72 million deal, paying him $18 million a season. And so we'll start with the Roki Sasaki situation. And I told you in the lead up to all of this that if he ended up picking the Dodgers, that this whole thing would have been a farce. This whole thing would have been just a overhyped, contrived way to try to convince us all that there wasn't an already prearranged deal. Now, Major League Baseball tells us that we've looked into this. There's nothing to see here. Nothing's going on. They didn't have a backroom deal. Everybody has been whispering about this from before Roki Sasaki was ever even posted to come over to Major League Baseball. And at the end of the day, he ends up in the place that everybody thought he was going to end up from the get-go because of this preconceived idea that they already had a deal in place. But don't worry, the Blue Jays were in it until the last possible second. Blue Jays tripped over themselves to trade for bad contracts to free up international signing money so that they could try to put together a competitive offer for Roki Sasaki. He wasn't good enough. He's going to go to the Dodgers. And then you had everybody tripping over themselves to try to help the Dodgers by giving them more of this international money. And now the Dodgers go into this year with, on paper, one of the best rotations you'll ever see. Shohei Ohtani coming back from Tommy John surgery. Yoshinobu Yamamoto had a great year last year, pitching the postseason for them. Roki Sasaki, 23 years old, one of the best young starters on the planet. To go along with Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow. That's a very, 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 very good rotation. They added one of the best relievers in all of baseball in Tanner Scott, lefty reliever, closer. Just adds to their bullpen. They already have Shohei Ohtani's bat in their lineup. They already have Mookie Betts. They already have Freddie Freeman. They brought back Teoscar Hernandez. They have a world-class World Series championship caliber lineup. We've seen it. They just won one. They're in position to run it back and do it again. So here is the question that we are going to try to get to the bottom of here today, because you hear it everywhere. The Dodgers are ruining baseball. They're ruining baseball. Look at all this deferred money that they're giving out to all these players. They trade for Tommy Edman. They sign him to a contract extension. They defer a bunch of money. They sign Shohei Ohtani to $700 million. They defer $680 of it. How do they get away with this? I'm going to teach everybody something here today, because everybody looks at the deferred money as the key, the secret sauce to what the Dodgers are doing. It's not the secret sauce. When the Dodgers defer any money on any of these deals, they have to put the money aside. It has to be put into an annuity, in escrow. It has to be put away. So just because 680 of Shohei Ohtani's $700 million, they're not actually paying him until the end of the deal, they have to every single year put that money aside. So it's not money that they are getting for free that they're then spending someplace else. They're not using the old shell game, find where what cup the shell is under. They're not doing that. They actually have to do something with this money. But you know what the Dodgers are doing? They're choosing to spend in deferred money or in actual cash that they pay out immediately. They're spending. They spent on Shohei Ohtani. They spent on Mookie Betts. They spent on Freddie Freeman. They spent on Blake Snell. Traded for Tyler Glasnow, extended him. Signed Yamamoto. Signed Sasaki. They did all that. Yes, they did all that. But guess what? Every single baseball team can also choose to do that. These owners are very, very wealthy. Do I need to explain to anybody that is listening to the sound of my voice of what it looks like when an owner gets a little uncomfortable and steps out of their comfort zone? Oh, yeah, it's what the Diamondbacks are currently doing. Now, is it to the level the Dodgers are doing? No, I will grant you that. I think there's only a handful of teams that can do that. But the Arizona Diamondbacks are proof that if you want to compete and you want to spend and you want to get talent, you have the ability to do so. Because Ken Kendrick right now is going to take a loss on paper for the Diamondbacks this year with where their salary is at right now, where their tax bill is at right now. But you want to know why he's doing it? Because he believes in the team and he wants to win, and he hopes that by making this bet now and they win, he'll reap the rewards down the road to make some of that money back. So it might not come on to the 2025 books, but maybe the 2026 books or the 2027 books look a little bit better because season tickets go up. Or more people are coming to the ballpark and spending money in the ballpark. Or people are buying jerseys. Or the next TV deal is a little bit more lucrative for this team because they're good. That's the bet that the Diamondbacks are making. Any team can choose to make that bet. The Padres can choose to make that bet. The Rockies can choose to make that bet. Do you know there are a handful of teams in baseball right now that haven't signed a major league player in free agency? What's stopping you? It's not the Dodgers. The Dodgers are not stopping you. You have the ability to do this. The Diamondbacks didn't look at what the Dodgers have been doing all offseason and go, oh, you know what? We just can't do it. We can't compete. We're just gonna try with the group that we've got, and it is what it is. Because they could do that. They could sell you that. They could be like, listen, we can't be the Dodgers. We can't spend that type of money. But you know what? They're not doing that. They spent $210 million on Corbin Burnes. And you know what they did? They deferred some of the money. They pulled the page right out of the Dodgers playbook. They said, oh, you can do that? Watch us. We'll do it too. A unique opportunity presented itself. Boom, Corbin Burnes is a Diamondback. Boom, Josh Naylor, we're going to trade for you. You can get creative. You can also do moves. You can also sign players. You can also make your team better. So are the Dodgers ruining baseball? Maybe this is a hot take. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion. No, they're not. All of these teams in baseball have the ability to spend money if they want to. They're choosing not to. Now, can they spend to the level the Dodgers are spending? No, I don't think every team in baseball can hand out a $700 million contract to Shohei Ohtani. No, I think there's a handful of teams that can do that. But Anthony Santander signed a 5-year, $90 million deal today with the Toronto Blue Jays. You're telling me that not everybody in baseball could do that if they wanted to? Now, if they wanted to, if they identified Anthony Santander as a player that would have helped them, they could have given him that reported contract of 5 years, $90 million. Any team in baseball can do that. If there's a contract under $100 million, there is zero excuse for it. I don't care if you're Oakland, now Sacramento. I don't care if you're Tampa. I don't care what market you play in. There is zero justification for passing on a $100 million or less contract. Everybody can play in those waters. Everybody can sign players, but you're choosing not to. And so you know what? I know there's a bunch of other people that are worried about what the Dodgers are doing. You know what I sit back and see? I see an ownership group. I see a front office. I see a team that isn't getting sucked up by that noise and that narrative. They're going out and signing Corbin Burnes. They're going out and trading for Josh Naylor. They're probably going to add a reliever here at some point. Maybe it's Kirby Yates. Maybe they go out and add to this bullpen. But they're certainly trying. They're certainly not going to look back and go, well, we just can't compete with them, so we're not going to try. No, they're still trying. Guess what? Everybody else can still do that. Miami, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Seattle. You name the small market team that you first associate with, they don't spend a lot. They can sign players. You choosing not to? You choosing to always avoid long-term commitments and signing those contracts? Okay. But don't cry foul, because you know what the little dirty secret about all of this is all of those teams are ecstatic that the Dodgers are going over the luxury tax thresholds. Why? Does anybody know where that money goes? Does anybody know where the money that the Dodgers are going to pay in luxury tax go? It goes into a rev share pool. And you know who gets the rev share pool? All of the bottom teams that don't spend money. They get those checks from Major League Baseball as part of the rev share agreement, as part of the CBA. That's how it works. So fans might be upset that their team's not spending money, but all those teams kind of look at the Dodgers and go, sure, go ahead. Because I'm going to run my team, and I'm going to break even or make a little money, not win a bunch of games, and then I'm also going to get a check from Major League Baseball for the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and the Phillies and the Cubs and all those teams going over the luxury tax threshold. So are the Dodgers ruining baseball? No. What's ruining baseball is very wealthy owners who are choosing, and it's their right, they own the team, but that are choosing to not invest a little bit. Because Ken Kendrick isn't Steve Cohen. Ken Kendrick isn't the owner of the Dodgers that has endless supplies of Wall Street money just pouring into their bank accounts on a regular basis. Ken Kendrick doesn't have that. But you know what Ken Kendrick isn't going to do? He isn't going to look at you in the face and just accept what the Dodgers are doing. They're going to try. They're going to go for it. They're going to give it their best. So I don't want to hear about a salary cap, because you know what a salary cap would do unless it comes with a salary floor? Nothing. All the teams that are at the bottom of the payroll charts right now would still be there. So unless you're going to institute a salary floor that every team has to meet, and you're going to set it pretty high, and you're going to be a little aggressive with it so that there are a bunch of teams that are under it right now would be forced to spend, you're not going to get the players on board. The players love this. The players love having teams like the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and the Yankees that are willing to go over these thresholds. Other owners and other teams, it's why what the Padres did was so cool. They were losing money, but they signed Manny Machado. They made all of those moves over and over and over again. Why? Because they want to win. And so instead, you have a bunch of owners that are running this like a business, just trying to make a profit instead of trying to win. That's the problem with baseball, not what the Dodgers are doing. The Dodgers are trying to win and be incredibly successful and also make a ton of money, and they have found the secret sauce. They have the resources that other teams don't have, but they also have a willingness to step outside the lines. And once they do, they reap all the rewards. Nobody else is willing to take on that risk. Okay, if nobody else is willing to take on the risk, because there's a risk for the Dodgers. There is no guarantee. They have a rotation filled with question marks. They could spend all this money, be the highest payroll team in baseball this year, and lose more games than they did a year ago, although I don't think that'll be true. Lose more games than they did a year ago and be a first-round exit in the playoffs. It is absolutely possible. Nothing is guaranteed, yet they're willing to take on the risk. Now, they have the means to take on the risk, but every team has the means to take on a certain level of risk. Avoiding risk altogether? Well, got to dare to be great. Ken Kendrick, he's daring to be great. He's daring to take it to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Okay. Coming up on the other side of the break, the divisional round, all 4 games, was further proof of what the Cardinals need to focus on this offseason. I'll explain next. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app today. You can catch up on everything over there. You can also listen to the show live. All of the shows live here on KDUS AM 1060. Well, when the Cardinals are not in the playoffs, I tend to watch these games through the lens of what are they missing that the teams that are playing have, right? What is the difference between the teams that are moving on, the teams that are playing in the Final Four next week in Conference Championship Week that the Cardinals don't have? And I'll tell you what, sitting back, relaxing on Saturday, relaxing on Sunday, watching these games, not stressed, right? No stress watching these games. Don't have a rooting interest, so you're just sitting back, relaxing the good football, and you're thinking about the stress that everybody else has. And it was pretty clear what all those teams that are moving on did well yesterday. Let's look at all four losers from this weekend. Houston. C.J. Stroud was pressured on 19 of 41 dropbacks. He was sacked 8 times. Detroit. Jared Goff got sacked twice, threw 3 interceptions, all because of pressure. The Rams. Stafford sacked 5 times. The Bills only got to Lamar twice in the game, but pressure forced him out of the pocket a bunch. Pressure. You saw it. How did the Chiefs slow down Stroud? Got to him. Pressure. How did the Commanders pull off the upset? Pressure, and they pressured Goff directly into turnovers. 3 interceptions. How did the Eagles slow down Stafford and the Rams offense? 5 sacks. That's the name of the game. Pressure. What did the Cardinals not have a lot of in 2024? Oh, that's right. Pressure. Why do you think there's a lot of people talking about Max Crosby? Why do you think there's a lot of people talking about Myles Garrett? Why do you think there's a lot of people talking about Micah Parsons potentially coming to Arizona and the Cardinals making the big swing this offseason? Because pressure wins. You want to beat the elite of the elite quarterbacks? You want to go on a deep run in the postseason? What do you have to do? You got to make them uncomfortable. You have to make these opposing quarterbacks feel it. Get them off platform. Get them out of the pocket. Get some pressure. Make the plays break down. You know how you neutralize a great offensive coordinator that has a great play call drawn up? You get pressure. You blow up a play before it can even develop. Before the quarterback can go through the progressions and get to the reads and find the mismatch that they've created, if you have the right pressure, if you have the right guys getting after the quarterback, you can stop any great play call. You can stop the Ben Johnsons of the world. You can stop the Bobby Slowicks of the world. You can stop the Sean McVays of the world. Those are 3 of the great offensive minds. Todd Monken. Those are the 4 guys calling plays this weekend for those 4 teams. Do you want to know how you slow those guys down? It's not because you play the chess match and you also call a great coverage. You get pressure. And it doesn't have to be always sacks. You don't have to lead the league in sacks, but you have to get pressure. C.J. Stroud was pressured on 19 of his 41 dropbacks. Do you think that impacted the other 20 or so dropbacks where he's thinking about it because he's been pressured so much that he can't stay in the pocket, that it's not clean, that he can't get through his progressions because he's got to step up or step out or extend a play or a play breaks down, whatever the case may be? You don't think he's thinking about those 19 times, the other 20 or so times? You don't think that enters his thought process? You don't think it throws off the play calling for Bobby Slowick? Oh, well, we've been pressured a bunch. We can't protect, and it changes what plays are available to you. It changes how you call a game. Pressure. Why do you think I've been pushing so hard for this team to not wait until April to address their edge? It's not just because it's a 5-pillar position. It's because you need impact players. You need stars. And you might find a star in April. You might find a star in the middle of the first round when you pick. I'd rather get the sure thing. I'd rather get the bona fide slam dunk defensive player of the year candidate at pass rush. That's what I'd rather do than leave it up to chance that a player falls to me in the middle of the first round. You're not picking in the top 3 or 4. You're picking in the middle of the first round. So I got to have a player that I like who I think is a star at that position fall to me. But then I also need that production right away. We know the pressure that this team's going to be under to produce in 2025. It's playoffs or bust, baby. This team needs to be in the playoffs next year. That's the standard. And so you can't leave it up to chance. These teams that played this weekend didn't leave it up to chance. These teams have drafted, developed, signed players all across the board. They have done the hard work. The Cardinals have to also do that hard work. And that's not to say you don't draft somebody. We make that very clear. You can still draft somebody in the first or second round. But you need a bona fide stud. We're going to go game by game here, okay? So join me on this journey. You need a Chris Jones. You need a George Karlaftis. Now, you may say, hey, Chris, they drafted those guys. George Karlaftis was drafted. I agree. But you need your immediate stud now. How about Washington and the pressure that they got? How about having a Dorrance Armstrong who had 2 sacks in the game? How about having that guy? Let's look at Philly. Philly, that's a draft and develop team, so that's a check in that box if you want it. They've spent so much draft capital. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, all across the board. But those guys are already producing. It took those guys a couple of years. It took Jalen Carter. It took Nolan Smith a couple of years to produce, to be what they were on Saturday. You can't afford that. Buffalo. Greg Rousseau. Ed Oliver. Von Miller. Paroling around on defense. Some of those guys from Buffalo. Some of those guys are drafted and developed. Some of those guys aren't. You can do both. But you can't afford to wait for the development because you have, let's face it, you have nothing. And the reason why these teams won this past weekend is because they were able to get pressure, either with their guys that they drafted and developed. And so you're hoping that Darius Robinson is that guy for you. You're hoping Darius Robinson is that draft and develop guy that when he enters year 2 now, you see that jump. So he is your Jalen Carter. He is your Nolan Smith. He is your Greg Rousseau. He is your George Karlaftis. That's what you're hoping. But then you also need the stud. You need your Chris Jones. You need your Von Miller, although maybe not this year, Von Miller. You need your stud. You need your guy that you know is good for a double-digit sack season. That's what this team is missing. So you watched it, and you're going to watch it again on Sunday, and you're going to watch the teams that win these games, that are going to the Super Bowl representing the AFC and the NFC. The reason why, they're the team that can get the sustained pressure and get after the quarterback. That's the takeaway. So we can talk about T. Higgins. We can talk about getting a corner. We can talk like we did last week about the interior of this offensive line being in disarray. And offensive lines are important. You saw that on Saturday and Sunday as well. But you got to get pressure on the quarterback. You got to have 19 pressures on 41 dropbacks. You got to have 8 sacks. You got to force a quarterback to throw 3 interceptions. You got to sack Matt Stafford 5 times. You're going to play the Rams twice. You need to be able to reproduce that. You need to be able to put up that type of production. And so Darius Robinson, that's your draft and develop guy. And then you'll take another swing this year, maybe in the middle rounds with your day 2 pick or day 3 pick to get another draft and develop guy, right? And you have the in-house options. You need the big fish. You need the big move. That's what the Cardinals need to get this offseason. Coming up on the other side of the break, 480-864-1060, the phone number if you want to join the conversation. The Suns, in about an hour from now, the ball will go in the air. They're going to take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. What can we learn from the Suns taking on the Cavs today? That's next in the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. In less than an hour from now, the Phoenix Suns will take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. The fourth of 5 games on this road trip. They'll finish this up on Wednesday when they take on Brooklyn. 5-game road trip. So far, 2-1 on the road trip with 2 more to go. Coming off that win on Saturday against Detroit, in which Kevin Durant and Devin Booker combined for 71 points. Nick Richards added 21 and 11 off the bench. They'll take on the best team in the Eastern Conference. They will take on the Cleveland Cavaliers in less than an hour from now, and they will do so with Bradley Beal back, or at least that's the expectation from Coach Budenholzer. He says Bradley Beal, the expectation is that he is going to be able to play. Jusuf Nurkic will not return to the team on this road trip. He will remain in Phoenix. They're calling it return to action reconditioning, I believe is the phrase that I saw in the tweet. And so Jusuf Nurkic not going to be with this team on the road trip. That's not a surprise. I would be shocked if he returned to the team at all at this point. But Bradley Beal looks like he's going to be back, which you're going to need everybody for this game. Because let's talk about this game in particular and what we want to see today from the Suns against the Cavaliers. This is a tough draw. It's a tough matchup. Let's face it. I don't think going into the year we would have said this, but here's where we're at. The Cleveland Cavaliers are the better basketball team. They're the more consistent basketball team. You don't need to just look at the records to look at that, to be able to prove that. Just look at the way that they play. More consistent. And so going into this game, if you are going to pull off the upset, and it would be the Cavs 8.5-point favorites today at home, you need all hands on deck. You need every single person that you count on for scoring. And we opened the show by saying that the Suns couldn't pull away from the Pistons because they just didn't have that extra layer of scoring. With Bradley Beal back, and more than likely Bradley Beal back in his bench role, they're hoping to have that additional scoring. So to have that, to go along with Grayson Allen, to go along with Royce O'Neal, to go along with what you get from Nick Richards, the hope is that now this team is a more well-rounded operation. So what do you want to see today? Because this is a tough draw. It's a tough matchup. And we said before the road trip began, this is the one we would give you. We don't expect you to win this game today. We just don't. What about the Phoenix Suns in recent vintage tells you that they're going to win this game today? You're going to look at what they did against Detroit. You're going to look at what they did against Washington. Are those the games you're going to look at to put together a resume for why the Phoenix Suns are going to pull off the upset today? You just don't have it. You don't have the resume right now. It doesn't exist. So you would be betting on all of a sudden this team finding something that we haven't seen from them in the last couple of weeks. So what do you want to see today? Now you pull off a win, now all of a sudden this road trip can be something even more, because then a 4-1 road trip is on the table. And so that's the dream scenario. But I think you want to see today, with Bradley Beal back in the lineup, with Nick Richards, in my estimation, my opinion, I don't have any sourcing on this, I'd expect to see Nick Richards in as the starting center today. So with all 3 members of the Big Three, with Nick Richards in the fold, Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, team's healthy. Tyus Jones, Ryan Dunn, healthy. Everybody that you would count on in a playoff series is available. So what do I want to see today? I want to see a team that for 4 quarters can go blow for blow, can match the intensity, can match the energy, can match the physicality, the athleticism, whatever the Cavs are going to bring to the table today. I want the Phoenix Suns to match them blow for 4 quarters. It doesn't have to end in a win. But I don't want to come in here tomorrow and talk about a team that was a no-show against the Cavs. I don't want to talk about a team that was non-competitive against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't want to have that conversation tomorrow. I want to have the conversation of, okay, you were competitive. You kept it close. That's good. That's a good step. That's a good mile marker for this team to hit. I don't want to talk about a team that got blown out. I don't want to talk about a team that's more than likely getting Bradley Beal back into their rotation, their no-shows, and they lose by 15 or 20. That conversation, I think, is unacceptable. Winning, obviously, the dream scenario, because it puts a 4-1 road trip on the table to where you can come back multiple games above 500, and that would set up really nicely. You take care of business against the teams you're supposed to take care of business against, which has been a criticism of this team the last couple of weeks. Memphis, Atlanta, Charlotte, right? Didn't take advantage of those opportunities. A 4-1 road trip, that would be taking advantage of those chances against teams that you're supposed to be able to beat with the talent that you have. you had the cherry on top of going into Cleveland and beating Cleveland, man, that would make this road trip potentially the thing that gets people back on board. Might get me back on board. We'll see. But all you want to see is competitiveness. You want to see a team that is able to tough it out with the Cavs. You want to see a game that is down to the last couple of possessions in the fourth quarter. That's what you want to see. You want a team that went into Cleveland, looked Cleveland, the best team in the East, right in the eye, and said, we're not scared of you. We're not afraid of you. We've got the talent. We've got the coach. We've got the ability to win this basketball game. That is what you want to see for 4 quarters. So that's what we can learn. We can learn a lot about the character of this team, the leadership of this team. Now, I don't like that we're still in January trying to figure that out. But this game's a litmus test. This game is a mile marker. Let's see. You want me to take you seriously. You want me to hop back in. I'm out. I've been out since December 16th. I've been out for over a month. Do you want me back in? You want me to start believing again? You compete in a game like today. You don't win it. You don't have to win it. But you have to compete in it. Now, the dirty little secret here is you're talented enough to win the basketball game. You're good enough to win the game today. If everything goes the way it's supposed to go for this team, and you get production out of Bradley Beal off the bench, and Nick Richards provides the rebounding, and you get the scoring from Durant and Booker that you saw on Saturday, you're good enough to win this game. And those what-ifs are not impossible. I'm asking Bradley Beal to do something he's already shown me he's capable of doing. I'm asking Nick Richards to show me something he's already shown me he's capable of doing. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I'm asking you to be Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. That's what I'm asking. And then you need Ryan Dunn and Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal. You need those guys to just contribute a little bit. You need those guys to do their part. You don't need those guys to come in and drop 30 off the bench. You don't need that. You need the players on this team to do what you've seen them be able to do and do it consistently for 4 quarters. That's the recipe. And so what we can learn today about the Phoenix Suns is the character of this team. Are they going to view this as their opportunity? Are they going to view this as their chance to take it to one of the best teams in the East, to remind everybody, because the noise is loud. The noise is very loud right now about the Phoenix Suns. Blow it up, move on, trade Kevin Durant, trade Bradley Beal. Built the wrong way. Nobody believes in them anymore. They're a mess. They've got an owner who's doing things the wrong way. The noise is very, very loud. Today, a chance to silence that noise. You beat the Cavs, you silence that noise. Yeah, it's just one of 82, but it's an important one. So how do they embrace today's challenge? How do they embrace facing a team of the caliber of Cleveland? With Bradley Beal more than likely back in the rotation tonight or this afternoon. How do you handle it? How do you view this challenge? Do you embrace it? Do you take it on? Do you thrive in it? Do you embrace the pressure? Do you play well? Or do you crumble? Do you give us another performance like you gave us against Memphis? Or against Charlotte? Or against Atlanta to start this road trip? Which one? Because I've already given this to you as a loss. I've told you. And not like they're listening to me. But I'm not unique in this. You look at this game on paper and you assume that it's going to be a loss because of how good Cleveland is and how poor the Suns have played. Change that narrative today. Change it. Change that narrative today. So that's what I'm going to take away from this game. That's what we can learn. The culture, the attitude, the leadership, the character, all of it going to be on full display here today. How does this team, in the middle of a road trip, in the middle of a very important road trip, now face the top team? This is the biggest game of the entire road trip. It is the hardest game of the entire road trip. It is the best team they're going to face throughout the entire road trip. You see the road trip, you circle this one. We circled it and said, you're not winning this game. You've circled it, and you view it as an opportunity to change a narrative. So do you change that narrative? Or do you feed the narrative even further? And how you feed that narrative today? Well, you get blown out. You're non-competitive. It's not even close. How you change that narrative? You play hard for 4 quarters and you take it to the Cavs. You cover the 8.5. You potentially win the basketball game. And you show that this team still has some fight left in it. That this team, the way it is currently constructed, deserves the runway to see this through. That the trade for Nick Richards was the right path for this team to take. That's what's in front of you today. To the 4th of 5 games on this road trip, the Suns will take on the Cavs in about 45 minutes from now. Bradley Beal back in the lineup or back in the rotation for this team after missing the last couple of games with an ankle injury. No use of Nurkic. He's going to remain in Phoenix throughout the duration of this road trip, so will not play today and obviously won't play on Wednesday when they finish up at Brooklyn. And so a 2-1 road trip so far after the win on Saturday, a nice win on Saturday. I don't want to call it impressive, but it was a nice win on Saturday. And now a chance to have an impressive statement victory by taking on the Cavs. But I don't need that. I just need to see the fight for 4 quarters. I just need to see something to hold on to. 480-864-1060, the phone number. Last call, because we've got one more segment here on the lunch break. So if you want to hop in, that is the phone number to do so. You can also hop in on the KDUS AM 1060 YouTube channel as well. You want to hop in over there in the live chat, you can share your thoughts over there as well. But coming up on the other side of the break, it is the way we end every single edition of the lunch break. We put together all the stories that we didn't get to throughout the course of the show, stories that I've wanted to give you some thoughts on. It is the leftovers. We'll do it next, the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Back to wrap up today's edition of the lunch break. Appreciate you being here. KDUS AM 1060. My last plug for the day, make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app. You register, you sign up, you logged in while you're listening to the show. Not just my show. Maybe you listen to Dan Patrick in the morning. Maybe you're listening to Jim Rome, who follows us. Maybe you're listening to the Sports Zoo with Rooster. Whatever you're listening to, make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app today. We got a lot of cool things in the works for 2025. You're going to want to be in on the ground floor. You're going to want to be there at the get-go so you're not late to the party. So do me a favor, download the KDUS AM 1060 app here today. We had a baseball move today. The Blue Jays and Anthony Santander reach a 5-year, $90 million deal, although it can be worth more with some incentives. It obviously has the opt-outs in it. And the Blue Jays, unfortunately, have been the butt of the joke over and over and over again the last couple of years in Major League Baseball because they have been the bridesmaid, never the bride. They have always played second fiddle in free agency, whether it is to Juan Soto, whether it is to Shohei Ohtani, whether it is to Roki Sasaki, you name a big free agent over the last couple of off seasons, the Blue Jays have probably been a finalist, and the Blue Jays certainly haven't landed that big free agent. And so they finally get one of these deals over the finish line, and they are a weird team because they got a lot of question marks. Vlad Guerrero Jr., going to be a free agent here pretty soon. There are rumors that they are working on a long-term deal, but there are also rumors that they are very far apart. They have been rumored or linked to the Pete Alonso sweepstakes, and now they land the big fish. They landed DH in Anthony Santander, 5 years, $90 million. So not a lot of big names left. Starting pitchers, Corbin Burns off the board. Roki Sasaki now off the board. Blake Snell off the board. So Jack Flaherty, you're the best free agent still available as a starting pitcher. Hitters, Juan Soto off the board. Anthony Santander off the board. So you're looking at Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman as the best hitters still available. Tanner Scott off the board for the relievers. So Kirby Yates is probably the best reliever still left. So you're starting to see us dip into the second, third tier options here in free agency. There are a lot of moves still left to be made, but a lot of the big names are coming off the board. The big names still left, Bregman and Pete Alonso are the two hitting names that everyone's going to be keeping an eye on, and Jack Flaherty, the name on the pitching side of things that everybody is keeping an eye on. But the Blue Jays finally get a free agent past the finish line, and it is DH Anthony Santander, 5 years, $90 million plus in that deal that sends him to Toronto, north of the border. The deal has some opt-outs, I believe, after 2028. And so he is going to get a bunch of money here over those first couple of years. Had a big year last year, 44 home runs, 102 RBIs, 25 doubles in 155 games. His home runs, that ranked third in the majors last year behind Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. So that's pretty good. They have been finalists year in and year out, the Blue Jays. Ohtani, Soto, Burns, Sasaki, over and over and over again. They missed. They finally land one in Santander. And they might try to go for it for at least one more year with Vlad Guerrero Jr., who is slated to hit free agency at the end of next season. A rumor or a story broke on Friday that the Chicago Bears picked up the phone and they gave a phone call. And that phone call was to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that phone call said, hey, is Mike Tomlin available? You interested in discussing trade compensation for Mike Tomlin? And I don't know the context or the content of the phone call, but I would assume it was a pretty quick one because the answer was no. And I told you, I believe this was talking about Monty Ossenfort and free agency, how I would be on the phone so much and I'd be calling people over and over and over again that they would be annoyed of me. That's how, if I was a team that needed a head coach, if I was Dallas, if I was Chicago, if I was the Jets, if I was the Saints, if I was the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would call the Pittsburgh Steelers until they either blocked my number or they reported me to the league for being annoying. Like, I would constantly be calling them about Mike Tomlin. If you were going to cast a wide net and you're going to conduct a head coaching search, right? You fire a head coach. That means you're starting from scratch again. You're starting from zero. Wouldn't you, if you're going to cover all your bases, and you think potentially there's a chance that Mike Tomlin could be available, if you're going to conduct a head coaching search, because the idea here is to get the next head coach that you're going to have for the next decade plus. You want to do this head coaching search one more time. This is it. Anytime you launch a head coaching search, you're hoping that it's your last one for the foreseeable future. So why wouldn't you call about one of the more successful head coaches in NFL history? A guy who's been there for 18 years and has never had a losing season. Why wouldn't you, if you were trying to conduct a thorough, robust, important head coaching search that you hope sets you up for the next decade or longer, why wouldn't you call the Pittsburgh Steelers about Mike Tomlin? To me, you wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't at least ask. If you didn't at least pick up the phone, and again, make them tell you no. If they tell you no, you can't force them. Okay, you've at least checked the box and say, I did it. I tried. I made the phone call. And so the Bears, I think the only team so far to have done that, haven't heard anything about the Jets, the Saints, the Cowboys, although there's a lot right now to the Cowboys and the Deion Sanders rumors. Reporting out there that says if the job was offered to Deion, he would take it. Job obviously hasn't been offered to him. There hasn't even been a formal interview yet. There's just been brief conversations, and those conversations are expected to continue or have continued. And so there's a lot of noise pointing in that direction for Deion maybe making the jump to the NFL and coaching the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, would that get headlines. I don't know how it would work on the field. I don't know if it would lead to results, but it certainly would draw headlines. Certainly would keep the Cowboys in the news. But if I was any of these other teams, Jags, Saints, Jets, I'd pick up the phone and ask. Is there a price is there a certain draft pick you would need? I would at least force them to tell me no. And so the Bears did that. They at least forced the Steelers to tell them no. There's a national championship game tonight. Ohio State will take on Notre Dame to close out the football weekend. Ohio State 9-point favorites. At least I'm looking at the ESPN bet numbers here. Ohio State -9, the total 45.5. So Notre Dame pulling off what would be a big upset, winning this championship game. You have 14-1, 7-seeded Notre Dame against 13-2, 8-seeded Ohio State. And look, Marcus Freeman has done an excellent job getting Notre Dame to where they're at right now, getting them to play in this championship game. And if they were able to pull this upset off tonight, if they were able to win this game, and they certainly can, I don't care that this is a 9-point margin. Notre Dame can win this game. They are talented enough. They are good enough to win this game. But I look at the way Ohio State has been playing recently, and I said this before the playoffs started. If you find the consistency with Will Howard, and if you're Ohio State and you play the way that you played in your first round college football playoff matchup, you're going to win the whole thing. They're tough to beat. That's the way they've played. They've played that way the entire college football playoff. And so I made that statement before the year started. I said, hey, if they play like this, they're probably going to win it all. So if you want my official pick here, I like Ohio State. I don't know if I like them to cover the 9. It's a big number. I think it's a little disrespectful to Notre Dame. But I look at this Ohio State team right now, and I say if they continue to play the way that they have played, just in the college football playoff, they can beat anybody that is left in front of them. They can beat anybody that is left on the table. And they have done that over and over and over again. And for Ryan Day, what a story this would be if he was able to win, because it just feels like everyone's always constantly trying to run him out of town, and he could win a championship. That would keep him there. Now, if you lose and Marcus Freeman beats you, I think those conversations aren't going to go away anytime soon. Will Howard for Ohio State. You've got Riley Leonard for Notre Dame. It's a big quarterback matchup. The defenses are going to be huge in this game. Who can create the additional possession? Who can create the turnover? Who can make the big play? But at the end of the day, I think the way Ohio State is playing right now, if that's the team that shows up tonight, they will win. And they might be able to cover the 9. It's a big number, though. Got to win by 2 scores. And like we talked about with the games over the weekend, there were some big numbers that we said, well, these games might be close late, right? The Texans-Chiefs game, we were concerned about the -8, and the exact scenario we laid out for you on Friday happened. You look at the score late, and you're like, the Texans have the ball, and they're driving, and they need a score, and so they might do X to try to close the gap a little bit, and now you're not within the 8. So it's a big number. It's a big number. I like Ohio State in the football game. I think they hoist the trophy at the end. And by the way, the College Football Playoff Committee, some rumblings on what the system might look like for 2025, and reportedly, they have not ruled out any tweaks for next season's college football playoffs. They have not made any major decisions because they had a meeting yesterday. The FBS commissioners and the presidents and chancellors who control the playoff had an annual meeting, and they had a bunch of conversations, but nothing has been done yet, and they have to unanimously agree upon any changes to the format. And one of the big things that obviously is going to be talked about is the seeding. But apparently no conversations about a 14-team playoff, at least not anybody in their room hard pressing, but nothing about the seeding process, at least in depth. But they did have a conversation about the value of having the 4 highest-ranked conference champions earn first-round buys. So that at least was on the table. And again, nothing is perfect. I think this is better. The 12 team is better than what we were doing in the past. And I very much am open to discussing what we should do with conference champions, discussing how we should rank these teams. I'm all for it. But this 12-team playoff is a huge success. It's made all the TV networks more money. It's made college football as a whole more money. And it has created an entertaining format that is now going all the way until January 20th. We are into the conference championship week of the NFL, and we are still playing college football. So college football starts earlier than the NFL, and it is going all the way up until the second to last week of games for the NFL. Think about that for a second. Think about that. So college football, we talk about the NFL being a cash cow. College football's not doing too shabby. They're doing okay. They're doing pretty solid. So tweaks, I'm all good with. But this system overall, it's working. We got to figure out how we rank these teams, what the criteria is. But if we want to have some conversations about the format, the tweaks, and maybe changing the way we seed teams and the way we prioritize conference championships, I'm all for that. I'm all for putting the best product on the floor. But year one, from going from 4 to 12, making this jump, 2 thumbs up. So we'll have a national champion by the time we get in here tomorrow. We will also know if the Suns got their 3rd win on this road trip or if they will need a win in Brooklyn to salvage a 3-2 road trip. So that will be the focus of tomorrow's show. Appreciate you being here on the Monday edition of the show. Producer Dylan, thanks to you for all that you do. Jim Rome is next. Hope everybody makes it a great rest of your Monday. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See ya!